Welcome to Outside the Frame, a podcast for wedding industry professionals to learn how to be better humans in business and life.
We're your hosts,
Caitlin of Skywater Photo and Film,
and Kaylin of Wandering Wildflower Films. We're here to create a supportive and meaningful space for diverse voices to discuss social and personal issues that impact wedding pros.
Our hope is that collectively, we can bring more of ourselves and the things that matter to the forefront of our work in the wedding industry and give all of us the courage to focus our business around who we are and what we care about.
We're so glad you're joining us. Thanks for tuning in.
Welcome back to Outside the Frame podcast. We are here today with Jake from Functions and Gatherings. After nearly 2 decades working in hospitality and events, Jake is excited to celebrate 8 years as the owner, creative director, and principal planner behind Functions and Gatherings. They started Functions and Gatherings to carve out a fulfilling and affirming space for themselves as a professional and bring the celebration of queer joy the platform it deserves in the wedding industry. When they're not behind the clipboard, you can find them reading with their cat on their lap, enjoying an afternoon at an art museum, or flouncing about in a brightly colored, gender-defying outfit. They look forward to many more years of bringing a little extra sparkle and joy to queer celebrations. Welcome to the podcast, Jake. I know that this is kind of like your first time meeting Kaylin, so we'd love to hear a little bit more about kind of like the backstory and how you got started with Functions and Gatherings in the first place.
I have always kind of loved events and like celebrations, so this time of year is a joy for me. The holiday season, always very extra. Loved getting to help with decorations and cooking and just like hosting as a kid. So it's always had a special place in my heart, and I kind of knew that's what I wanted to do. Life had other plans. I went to culinary school, so kind of adjacent. I studied catering and banquet operations specifically, so a specific sector of events. And then I went to UNLV for meetings and events management very briefly because Las Vegas is entirely too fun of a place to live for a 21-year-old. And I moved back and continued my career at Starbucks. And I worked with a coat check company for a few years and did operations for them. And I was working for a digital marketing company. There's a lot of other steps in there that we can skip, but it was not for me and not my people to hang out with all day, every day. So my husband helped me hatch a plan to make my departure from there and figure out what was next. And I really decided it was time to start event planning. And as I tried to find my place in the industry, I kind of wasn't. So I decided to make it and build my queer-centric wedding planning business. And here we are today, 8 years later.
What were some of the first few events that you planned?
Yeah. Do you mean generally or as Functions and Gatherings?
Once you started your company?
Once I started my company, the first time I was hired to produce an event was actually for the Seattle Queer Film Festival. So they had opening night and a closing night party, and then they had a few like centerpiece films in between. So they have like bigger party to open and close the festival, and then like smaller kind of reception style events to celebrate bigger films where there's like guests from out of town and stuff like that. So I was so excited to be like, I just kind of like decided that there was like gay events out there that I wanted to plan, and then they actually were, and I got to do them within like 2 months of starting this business. It was perfect.
Yeah, I love how like you just dove right in. You're like, yep, this is my company, and here's my people. I love that. I would love to hear a little bit talking about the queer piece of it. Tell us more about your story of your own queer journey. How has your own understanding of yourself grown over time as you've kind of fed into that and into your business?
Yeah, I could talk for at least an hour on each one of those 3 questions, but I'll try and keep them concise. In terms of my own queer journey, it's pretty much been my whole life. Like, I'm the kind of person that, like, was like, why did we ever even have to talk about it? Like, why was there ever, like, a phase where, like, the before coming out and the after coming out? Because like I just kind of always was this person, and I've presented that in different ways over the years, but the core and the passions and what brings me joy and the expression has always been there. One of my favorite stories that my mom told me was I was at a play date when I was about 3 years old, and the other mom asked her how my dad felt about the fact that I was gay. So, like, as young as 3, at least. Other people were like, so that kid's gay. That's cool. Hopefully his parents are cool with that. I don't know life any different. There are a lot of people that are like, yeah, I didn't really think about it. But it's definitely just kind of always been part of who I am. And I feel really lucky to have grown up with supportive parents. Like, I come from working class, blue collar, NASCAR people who I think stereotypically and historically are not necessarily the most queer friendly, but I've always been me, and that was never a huge problem. So that was always really lovely. What was part 2 of that? More of like my own journey of self-discovery and self-expression?
Mm-hmm.
That's a big one. That's like therapy talk.
I mean, it is, but like, it's just, we love seeing so many different perspectives on here. And I, even just your perspective about kind of always being that way. It's so different for each one of us. Like, my journey is different from your journey, right? Like, I did have to have some sort of formal statement because I had always been with men, and like, I have a very hetero appearing marriage, which, to everybody else is like, oh, well, like, okay, so she's just straight. But I love that, like, you were able to just be yourself for so much of your life. And I feel like a lot of people don't get to experience that. And I love that you've been able to just like no, this is just who I am. And like, you got to experience that for most of your life, which is just, yeah, really cool.
I mean, obviously life hasn't been without its hardships and dealing with bullshit and phobia and all of that. But I also kind of feel like I got a jump start on getting to like do like the Seattle like niche identity, like who am I really truly? Which is kind of more where that like part of my story comes in. Like, I grew up in the suburbs east of here, like 20 minutes in Issaquah, and was mostly just like kind of regular. And then I was like, I feel like I have more to give the world. And I started like kind of like playing around with drag. And I had a friend that was a makeup artist. I would sit for like 6 hours and let him do my makeup and like put on like all of these extra garments that were unnecessary and the wigs, and I never like performed or anything. It was like just for the love of the art. But after a while I was like, "Ugh, this is just like gross. There's like so many sensory issues. I'm so sweaty before I have a wig on, and then I put the wig on, and like, there's got to be another option." And one time I was talking to a friend about it, and she was like, well, you might not be performing on a stage, but you're performing gender. And my brain like exploded. And I was like, well, I can do that every day. Yeah, holy shit. There, when you put it that way, talk about nuance.
Then aren't we all performing it in some way, shape, or form, right? Like, yeah.
And we really are. The true nitty gritty of it is I met my husband. Well, I moved to Seattle proper and kind of started exploring more queer community. Like, I have a really lovely core group of friends, and they're just like not like the artsy fartsy city queer type totally all the time, but like they're used to all of this. So when I moved to the city, I started exploring more community and was like spending more time in queer nightlife, and kind of started to flourish a little bit more in my own creativity and expression. And then I met my husband and was like, I don't have to perform masculinity to be loved, basically, was kind of a realization that I had. Like, I could really truly be my fullest self and be loved unconditionally as that person, which was another really brain-breaking thing. That kind of gave me the opportunity to widen my expression. And I think it's really that, like, the expression and how I show up and what I'm wearing and what I look like and how I carry myself in the world has kind of been the most transformative part, because I've kind of always been this like flamboyant, kind of like outspoken, like gay best friend kind of character. But to really come into more of like this like gender monster, like I really just kind of like do what I want, but I also like to be like a real human being. I want to be unremarkable, I think is what I'm trying to say. Like I want what I'm doing and how I exist in the world to not faze people. And it's always like, oh my gosh, you're so brave. That's so amazing. I could never do that, which are all like backhanded compliments. Like as a fat person and a queer person, that's not the compliment that you think it is. I mean, like being a professional, right? Like I'm not in like the arts community or nightlife or something, but like I'm going to networking events in like a dress and platform shoes and like really big costume jewelry earrings with my Christmas nails. Like I'm just like bringing that whole self to the wedding industry, which is doesn't have a lot of that, frankly.
No, we definitely have realized that. Hence, why we definitely want to keep bringing more of these topics to light on the podcast. That was a huge driver for us on, starting this podcast to begin with. It sounds like when you were talking about the beginning of Functions and Gatherings to begin with, that was already like something that you had in mind from the start. Has that grown over time? Are there certain things that you've been able to kind of help some of your clients even find like some, more of their own acceptance, or like, kind of tell us a little bit more how that's kind of like grown and shifted over time?
Yeah, I think because I've grown along with the company, it's really so much deeper than like queer parties. Like I hosted a queer focused like wedding vendor show a couple of years ago, and we had so many really intense conversations about our why. And we talked a lot about choice and how, as queer people, we often want certain things, but because we've spent our whole lives being told and shown that what we like, who we are is incorrect and not okay, that we tend to shy away from those things or settle for things that bring us some joy but aren't our fullest joy. So I always really am like, I want to know like what your biggest wedding dreams are. I don't want to know how much you are worried it's going to cost. I don't want to know what you're worried that your great aunt who loves Jesus is going to think about it. I want to know that if it was just the two of you in a room, what your wedding would look like to feel the most exciting and like authentic you version. And then we can figure out how all of those other pieces come in. My marketing does a lot of vetting for me. A lot of people come to me kind of knowing the experience that they're going to get. They know they already want something outside of the box. I don't know that I've like specifically had any transformative experiences like that with clients specifically, but I did have a client recently tell me that their mom, who was very religious, was really impressed with and loved their like very queer like Lux Goth wedding in the forest. And that kind of felt like a little bit of the point for me, right? Like I know that your relationship with your mom is complicated, but I also know that it's really important for you to have her there and for her to be there and for her to be some level of comfortable. And we did that. And that kind of feels like the right place to be.
For sure. No, that's really powerful.
It's an incredible thing to be able to do for couples, and especially in the LGBTQ space, because it is hard because everyone tries to fit into a box or be a little less gay because somebody's going to have a problem with you being queer, being too queer, too joyous. It sounds like this idea of like connecting families almost, or making those positive interactions between complicated relationships is really powerful for you working in the wedding industry. What else about LGBTQ weddings are so special to you?
The biggest one for me is that so much of what we fight for is acceptance, which to me truly feels like the baseline. Just like being okay with the fact that I live next door to you and you've accepted that, or like that I deserve the same rights as you and you've accepted that, like, great. Like, that is like, the bar is so fucking low. Like, why is that what we're doing? And for me, it's about like celebrating in the face of that. Like, truly being like, I'm worth more than being accepted. I deserve to be celebrated. Like, people like me have been persecuted and like kept down and held down and discriminated against for centuries. And like, we can talk about like colonization and white supremacy and all of those things that affect all of us, even outside of queer people, but that's the experience that I have to bring that to. So to like celebrate our love in a concentrated way that's not watered down to be palatable for people that it's not for is like so powerful. And like right now, especially, like it is really hard to wake up every day and be gay and just like read the headlines and then keep participating in capitalism. Like, what is that? So let's party sometimes about it and let's celebrate each other and let's find that joy, because they want us to be worn down. They want us to be tired. They want us to feel defeated and hopeless. So to bring people together to celebrate queerness is so defiant and it fuels people. Like, I leave weddings sometimes with more energy, but like emotional because I'm physically exhausted. Just like spirit so uplifted. Like, that is so good. Like, I love being gay. I love gay people. Like, this is great. We should do this all the time. That's kind of the biggest thing for me, is that next level outside of acceptance, because again, the bar is on the ground. Like, great. I'm glad that you've accepted the fact that I'm here. I've got so much more to bring to the world, and every single one of us do. Like, we really, truly are, like Caitlin was saying, like, we all have such different experiences. I try and remind myself on a semi-regular basis that, like, gay Republicans are a thing.
Well, and all of this that you're touching on also speaks back to what the community has been talking a lot about this past year, which is like joy as resistance. They want all of us to feel less empowered and hopeless, or like, you know, what's the point of even trying, right? Like that's everything that they want us to be feeling right now. And so to say, no, it's not just that I'm here and I exist, right? And you should acknowledge that, but all of us deserve joy and love and happiness and support. Truly, like, everybody deserves to feel celebrated. I love that you've been focusing so much on that.
And it really is so powerful. I had a wedding this past spring that was that same idea that you're talking about, Jake, where they were just celebrating queerness. There was no question about it. You walked into that room and you were so safe. You just leave with these feelings of like, I can fully be myself, because everybody in that space is completely comfortable just showing up. Yeah, it's just like a whole nother level. And we need more of that. We need more of that in just like general life. We need to be able to just wear what we want to wear, do what we want to do, and just like love who we are at the core. So I absolutely love that you're doing that, and that you're making such an impact. Like, that is huge, to be able to celebrate people and to be that hand to say, no, don't just be accepted. Let's celebrate. Let's go above and beyond this bare minimum that we're at. So huge props to you, because that is huge to be doing.
It's just like a comfy space for me to exist.
We need more people like you, more people willing to step out and do that, because we need that support as just everyday humans. Is there anything in the wedding industry? I'm sure there's lots of things, in my opinion. But is there something in the wedding industry that you would love to change, that you would love to see happen over time?
Oh my gosh. So many.
Where do we begin?
There's a lot of things. I know.
There is part of me that has this vision where, like, my job is obsolete. I really think that there's an opportunity for expectation adjustment where, like, weddings can truly be community things. This is a place where I want to lower the bar, right? Like, the bar is too high on the expectation of weddings and all of this. Like, you can't ask people to cook for you. That's bad. Let them enjoy. Like, there's so much middle road. You can hire people to serve food that your aunts cook. You can have it in your backyard without paying $5,000 to tent your backyard. You can ask people to bring chairs. You can borrow chairs from your neighbors. My husband and I briefly talked about having a wedding celebration in our yard, and our neighbors were like, if you don't tell your guests that they can use our bathroom, we're going to be so mad at you. And like, we could even put a gate in the fence so they can just walk through the yard to use our bathroom. And you can also just like not invite more people than you have capacity for bathroom. Like, I don't know. I just feel like there's so many ways for it to like be just as special. Like, special doesn't mean expensive. There's a quote on my website from David Rose, and he says something, I don't remember the first part of it, but he says, just kidding, I want pageantry that takes months and months to plan. And I love that because I feel very similarly. Like, realistically, your budget has to be a certain level for me to be able to do my job effectively in the role that I'm in now. But pageantry doesn't have to be expensive. And pageantry doesn't necessarily have to be over the top and throwing confetti and giving everyone rainbow flags to wave when you walk down the aisle. But like, you can do big grand gestures, and I think it's more about being thoughtful than it is about spending money. And sometimes to do things a certain way, it costs money, and probably more money than you think it would. But that doesn't have to be, I think, the focus. I think there's still a place for big designed weddings. I would love to do more of them. I have a lot of creative juice to outpour for the world. And there's expectation resetting to be done where like it's okay to have a potluck. That's kind of special. Everyone cooking for each other. I think like let's write a potluck guide so we're doing it in a way that makes sense logistically and no one gets hives.
Well, and like, what if that was like your family thing for generations, right? Like, why would you want to tell your family to not do that if that's something that they've always done for gatherings or reunions or other weddings, right? You know, like there is a way to make that work. Just factor in a few key logistics.
Exactly. That's kind of the nicest change that I would ask for.
You can ask for a not nice change if you needed it.
The more aggressive one is just like, we have to change the way that we talk about weddings and the people that get married.
How would you do that?
The softer way is to just like, you really have to reframe inclusion in your mind and like remember that people are individuals. Like, you have to remember that your wedding on the 17th is 2 brides, or your wedding next summer is 2 grooms. Like, you have to just like make your brain remember that. And I don't have tips for it, but like, you just kind of have to do it. There's a lot of internal dialogue and shifting that needs to happen more greatly as wedding professionals. Like, gender really just needs to get taken out of it. Like, we need to be talking about couples. We can be talking about marriers specifically, to-be-weds, soonly-weds. There's lots of real catchy things to call people that don't involve making assumptions or assigning anything about their gender. Getting ready spaces and venues, like, stop. I worked at a venue once, and it was a gay wedding with 2 grooms. And they had like a little like shabby chic cottage that was the bridal cottage. And then they had like a spray painted green 5th wheel that was like the groom's getting ready space. So like, not only were they specifically labeled inappropriately, but like themed wildly. Or like just the sheer existence of them was just like so gender performative for like a very specific type of person. And then someone from the venue kept rehanging the bridal cottage sign outside after I kept taking it down. And I was like, this is not a fucking bridal cottage today. It doesn't need to be any day, and it's definitely not today. Like, there's no one in here that is a bride today. Stop.
That is insane. Yeah, I mean, that's definitely one of my biggest pet peeves. It's just so unnecessary. And I'm like, why can't we just have nice getting ready spaces for everybody and anybody? Like, I don't know why it has to be like, yeah, super feminine, white, over the top for one side of the wedding party, and then like this closet, basement, trailer, dungeon, game room, you know, you name it. I've seen it. Yeah. terrible video games or like a pool table. I've seen antlers. Like, I'm just like, it is so over the top. And I'm just like, you know what? Like, yes, I'm sure that that fits like a very particular niche of a person. Doesn't mean that literally half of all people, even half, not even close to half of people who get married want to get like dressed for their wedding day in that type of space. It's just so unnecessary. Yeah. Are there other aspects of queer love stories that you feel the wedding industry doesn't really hold space for or actively ignores?
Yeah, for sure. People that aren't visibly queer. Let's talk about it. Ooh. Kaylin, I don't have to tell you.
I know, but you're not just talking to me. You're talking to all of our listeners right
And
now.
I'm just like looking at you and I like see the recognition in your eyes and you're just like waiting for me to yap enthusiastically with a little bit of rage in my heart. And I'm ready too. This goes back to like remembering that everyone is unique individual people. Like non-binary people that are like femme leaning presenting without even being like a full glam updo I love pink lady, like still get ignored a lot and get called the bride and stuff like that. Or like I've done weddings where like if you look at people from the regular wedding industry lens, they look real heterosexual, but like maybe the groom or the bride is trans. Like maybe they are a straight couple. Like you can be straight and still be queer because your gender is different, right? Like, I mean, even saying that out loud still breaks my brain a little bit as someone who's had a limp wrist since the moment I was born, right? Like it's still really wild to like really look at queerness from that lens of like you can be straight and queer at the same time because gender is included in that. Everyone gets to be who they want. Like what is your wedding day persona? Like if you want to be a bride, hell yeah. If that's like a place of reclamation for you, let's do it. I'm not even opposed to brides and grooms, right? But I want everyone to get to be who they are on their wedding day and like figure out what that looks like for you. Sometimes it's just about people knowing, right? Like I get hired sometimes because people are like, I just want gay people at my wedding. Like it's gonna primarily be a family affair, but like I just need it to be gayer in any way possible. And just like knowing that like you're there and we can hire a photographer that gets it. Like it's just nice to have people around where there's like a baseline that you don't have to talk about. But if you need a second to talk about it, you can and they're gonna get it. More visibility and comfort and representation of not visibly queer people. And there's a few ways to do it. Just be gay by them and be really critical of how you're talking about it and what assumptions you're making about people.
Yeah, you talked about language a few minutes ago, just touching on how some of them want to be able to use the term bride and stuff. How do you navigate those conversations with your couples? Obviously, you mentioned, when you're thinking of like wedding day visions and you're like, I don't want you to yet think about, restrictions or limitations or budget or any of those things, but do you also kind of go through in your initial consults or when you first book clients, do you kind of talk about like what are the terms that you prefer? Do you prefer marrier? Do you prefer newlyweds? Do you prefer being called bride and like how do you navigate that conversation with your couples?
Honestly, I typically don't early on, and that's an area of growth for me, like to be a little bit vulnerable on the pod if I may. That is something that I've actually worked to implement into new workflows because I will find myself like it's just the person and they're getting married and it's just the other person that they're getting married to and vice versa. Like I forget to label them until it's like the wedding day and somebody's like, oh, do I need to take the bride a bottle of water? And I'm like, you need to take Caitlin a bottle of water, but I don't know if Caitlin is feeling bridal today. And so like if there's a down moment, I will be like, how where are you at today? Like, are you feeling like groom energy? Are you feeling like the broom? Are you feeling bridal? Tell me about your wedding persona for the day. And a lot of times people are like, I don't need all of that. Like, I'm just Jake and I'm here to get married. And other times they've already thought about it and they're so excited to share. Something I'm working on is doing that earlier on in the process and just kind of having it as onboarding. And that's another, it feels like if it's something they've thought about, it's an opportunity for them to share that and for me to know. But it also opens us up for another conversation back to kind of that choice of like, here are names that the wedding industry has already thought of, or like the queer people within that you might feel affirmed by if you don't already have your wedding persona label, or you don't have to have one, or you can think of a new one. There's a secret third option that none of us know about yet, and it's somewhere in your heart, and you're going to tell me when you're ready.
And maybe it'll change over time. Maybe like 6 months into the planning process, you can update me on what your identity or persona feels like, right? Like that's totally fine to change that. Even day of, right? Like you're saying, like, how are you feeling today? It's your wedding day.
If you get there and you've got that, like all those layers and all of that volume from your skirt and you're feeling bridal, own it.
I love that. I love the choice of like, how do you feel today? That leaves so much space for the way that we change. We are not the same person that we were 6 months ago. So it's nice to have that space for people. We kind of talked about this a little bit, but what can the wedding industry do to be more inclusive to queer couples? So obviously thinking about language that goes into inquiry forms, things like that, how we speak about our couples in general. It's such an easy swap in my brain that I'm like, why have we not done it yet? But is there anything else that you can think of that the wedding industry as a whole could do to make it more inclusive?
My biggest blanket piece of advice is don't talk about it, be about it. If I go to your website and you say, I'm inclusive, love is love, I'm going to be like, let's go look at your gallery page. Let's see how inclusive you are. Let's go to your Instagram. Do you only post queer couples in June when it's Pride Month and it's the right thing to do in capitalism? Are you posting like marriers of different sizes? Are you posting marriers with different skin colors, different ability levels? Like, there are so many ways that the wedding industry is not inclusive outside of queer inclusivity also. And the good thing is there's so many opportunities for us to grow and learn because of that. Like, there's so many opportunities to make a change and then get to celebrate it. It's really being about it. And it might be uncomfortable to be about it for a little while. Like, you might have to talk to a photographer or a planner or someone about doing a styled photo shoot. And like, if you're a straight person looking to profit off of queer people, you should probably pay those models. Don't necessarily think that everyone's going to work for you for free, but like, do the shoot, put the queer people on your website. Don't say that you love it and you are here to support it and celebrate it and then not do it. Like, if you can't even put it on your website, how do I think you're gonna be in person, like with me or with like my queer family, chosen or otherwise? You just have to like really put it out there. Like, I don't think you should have to say it. My website is kind of an example, but also a bad example because that's like all that's on there. But like, there's so much showing. You should show, don't tell. Like, I would rather go to your website and see different kinds of people and not see a rainbow flag, like inclusive vendor anywhere, because that's performative as hell. Just be inclusive. There's not like an inclusivity hat that you put on. I worked at a venue where historically, they're generally pretty inclusive, but the staff used a ton of gendered language and the grooms were two trans men. It's not just impolite and ignorant to call someone, in this case, a bride. Like, it's like even more actively harmful. I don't think anything happened to them, but I dealt with a lot of microaggressions that day and like macroaggressions where I was like, team, we gotta reel it in. This is not the kind of day that we're having. You can't just like put pictures of queer people on your website and then only ask people their pronouns or their wedding personas when they look gay enough to you. It has to be inclusivity all the time.
Yeah, like are they talking to people they hire on their team? It's such a weird place to be in, but I'm at the point now where I'm ready to like call it all out. Like I had literally just today, I had I wouldn't say brand new venue, but like a new-ish venue reach out that was like, we would love for you to become like on our vendor list or on our partnership, blah, blah, blah. But nowhere on their website or social media handles was anything about like two of my top values, which is sustainability and inclusivity. Like, and all it was a bunch of just white straight couples, straight looking couples, I should say, on all of their stuff. And so I was like, okay, well, I guess this is my opportunity to be like, well, it looks like a beautiful space. I would love to come and see it one of these days. That said, I want to make sure that we're aligned with values. And so I just responded with that in my email of like, these are some of my values, and I would like to know, do you share those same values? And we're going to see how it goes. But I'm at this point now where I'm kind of like, well, maybe the industry needs a full shakeup of not just more showing, not just telling, but also just like calling people out. Like if they're not even doing the bare minimum anymore. I'm so over it, and just like have conversations. Because even another vendor that I know in Colorado, she basically reached out to somebody who was able to kind of like change some of their language about like gender at a venue. And she said that like it was actually a productive conversation because she's like they just didn't understand. And so she said that she was pretty convinced now that so many people want to do better, they just don't know how or don't have the awareness. And so I feel like maybe that's what needs to happen next, is also just having those tough conversations, calling people out with microaggressions, et cetera. And also just flat out asking, are you talking to people you hire, your team, partnerships, et cetera? Are they also going to be super inclusive and supportive?
And that's kind of, I take like this really, I try and bring a little bit of like joy flavor. I say it with a smile, but I'm also just like incredibly direct, where like if someone is like, oh, where's the bride, I'll be like, there's no bride today, it's two grooms, that's it. I'm not gonna hold your hand literally or metaphorically. I'm just gonna let you know what's going on. Like that, I don't have time physically, like logistically or emotionally to be doing that. And I also don't want you to feel stupid or like you did something. I mean, you did do something wrong, but not maliciously, right? So I just need to like be like, that's the end of that. Two grooms, keep it moving. Remember next time you want to talk about the bride, there isn't one. And I've done that with like venues, and there's a wedding show that has a gendered name that might be Bridal Expo. And when their salespeople continue to contact me, I'm like, hey, bud, if you would have looked at my website for even 8 seconds, you would know that being part of something so aggressively gendered is deeply values and aligned for me. And not only am I not going to participate, I'm extra not going to give you money to participate. So please stop trying to sell me a booth. Or like new venues, when they reach out and I look at their website and they're like, bridal dressing room and a brand new groom suite. I'm like, I'm not coming to see your venue. If I meet a client that's already booked there, I'm not going to not work there, because I would love to provide a queer affirming experience for them in a not queer affirming space. But like, I'm not going to recommend your venue. You're not going on any list of mine. Like, think about what you're doing and think about who you're talking to before you talk to me like that.
Yeah, and how powerful is that you can be that extra line for couples too, of being like, hey, I can step in. This is a space that I can help protect my couples even more. Because there are so many of those spaces that aren't queer affirming at all. And so it's like, at least we as other vendors can say, hey, either cut that out or we're not going to support you. We're not going to endorse you, anything like that.
Like, I know that me not referring you is not going to break your business. Like, you're going to be fine, but also I'm not doing it.
They don't deserve our money. They don't need it. They can get it elsewhere.
That is one thing for me where I'm like, I tell people during their very first meeting, I'm like, if you want vendor recommendations and you don't think you're going to work with me, you can still ask, because I will still give you recommendations of other queer people to work with. Because if my friends are making money, I know the universe is going to bring it back around to me eventually. And it's just that important to me that the right people are getting these checks. Yeah, I like to bring it the other way too. Not only will I not support people, but I will over support the right people.
One of the things that you also shared with me in the past was kind of like your experience working with some local nonprofits, helping them with some of their events. Or can you kind of like tell us a little bit more about why you think it's important to support local organizations, especially like as somebody like in the wedding industry, like, being able to showcase some of the other things that you care about in that way?
Activism is so big. And like, I think a lot of people try to, like, not everyone can be on the front line of a protest on the street getting canisters of tear gas thrown at them. And there are people that need to be there. And there's an enormous system of like nonprofit networks, from like corporation size, multi-million dollar nonprofits down to like grassroots organization that are organizing getting people propane tanks that live on the street, right? Like, there is this huge network of communal support. And I think just as like a queer person that believes so much in celebrating queerness and queerness in general, that community is such a huge part of that. Like, historically, we have to have our own backs. Even in the good years, it's not always good for everyone. Or like, we have to keep fighting. And there are intersections within queerness of other marginalizations of people that need support and all of these things. It feels really important to me to bring the skill set that I have to the work. And I'm not a frontline tear gas girly, unfortunately. I would love to be. I have the anger for it. But like, that's just not the safest place for me to be in the body that I'm in. And so to be able to bring my skill set of like project management and event planning to being able to raise money and build community within the queer community for organizations that are doing this defiant to the current administration, queer supporting work is critical. And that's kind of always been part of my vision, is to be able to provide that support, because weddings are a privilege. And I think we treat them a lot as a right. And it's right that everyone have the same access to the same things in that sense. But I don't think that it needs to be a right to have a $200,000 wedding that is just like an over the top, like 3-day extravaganza experience. That's a privilege, and it's a beautiful privilege, and there's nothing wrong with that. But to be able to bring my skill set there and it still be meaningful, because celebrating queer joy is so like resistant, I guess is the word. That doesn't feel right. But then to bring it more to like the direct impact place where like we're raising money and we're also getting to celebrate queerness there. I'm not very good at not crying during like a mission video at a nonprofit event. Like, these things are so close to my heart as a queer person, and it's just really moving to hear people talk about the work that they're doing in the world and how important it is, and just like these like rallying cries of sticking together and supporting each other. And I recently this spring did a fundraiser for an organization called Pride Foundation. They started in the AIDS crisis to help redistribute the estates of gay men that had died of AIDS into the community. And now they're still like a community grant organization, and they provide grants to other community resources and also scholarships to queer people. It gave me goosebumps even now to just feel like I get to be part of that legacy of community support and like bringing people together, but also like celebrating our resilience. We're still here, and it's like really shitty that we're doing very similar work and that it's still not great for a lot of people, but like we're still here, we're still fighting, and we're going to do it together. Yeah, and it just feels really necessary to be part of that work and bring my skill set to a diverse audience, I guess.
Yeah, I think community, like you said, is so important, and I don't know that we always recognize that as much as we should. Every time you talk about some of that work, and even when you mentioned that you had done with the foundation, it just, yeah, it gave me goosebumps the first time you told me about it. So I was like, this just sounds very, very powerful, and I feel like it also helps anybody who's maybe feeling a little bit lost on like how to have like an impact or help make the world a better place. There's a lot of room for growth for a lot of people to kind of figure out like ways for them to do a little more, whether that's, you know, donating profits of your organization through something like 1% for the planet. I don't like there's like a million and one options out there, right? Volunteering in person. I've got an orientation scheduled next month for, you know, working with the West Seattle Food Bank. I'm tired of sitting on the sidelines and just like pretending like, you know, what can I do aside from, promoting content on social media and having conversations. Those are all important, but I feel like everybody has a role to play, right? And figuring out how to have that impact is great. So I've really admired seeing you do all these things to kind of uplift other organizations that share a lot of the same values that you do.
Nonprofit is really how I got my start into event planning. Like I was like, I need something to put on a resume. Like I have all of this relevant experience, but it's going to look absolutely heinous in resume format to make it make sense for an event employer. So I started volunteering and just like was on a couple planning teams to plan like an annual breakfast or something like that. And I was doing like data entry and stuff like that, but still getting to be part of those event conversations. And I feel like having that space carved out for me and being so welcomed onto these teams and these people like kind of seeing me for me and being like, yeah, let's go, come on. After the last election, people were like, what do we do? And I was like, you find the people that have already been doing the work for decades and you give them your time and your money. Nothing new needs to happen. We just need to hit the gas on everything that's already going on. We could get pretty niche with a problem. There's probably at least 2 nonprofits, especially in a big area like Seattle, that do work that tries to change that. Find them, give them your money, give them your time, give them your support, whatever that looks like. We don't necessarily need new stuff.
Thank you so much, Jake, for coming on here today and chatting with us and being open and vulnerable, and for just doing the work you do. Like spreading queer joy is everything that we need in this world. And we're just so grateful that you took the time to come on here and talk to us, talk to our listeners. And if you're listening, thank you for being here. We had an amazing conversation with Jake, and please share, comment, tell everybody about our podcast because we want to be able to spread all these conversations. It's such an important thing to be talking about, especially in the wedding industry. So please spread the word. Please encourage people to get out there, help their communities, as well as create a more inclusive wedding industry and a more inclusive world so that we can all just be ourselves and love each other. So thank you so much for being here, Jake. Thank you everyone for listening, and we will talk to you all soon. Bye-bye.